Hey Facebook family, it's Maha here, and I have such a special guest that I'm talking to today, this woman that I absolutely love.
It's only because you love me.
And I love you so much. And I met Penny in Byron 22 years ago as a independent home birth midwife. That's how long we've known each other. Isn't that amazing, Penny? 22 years. Where's the time gone? And Penny has been an independent midwife for 40 years, and I absolutely love her dearly. And her stories, her understanding of women and birth is something that I really wanted to record today and interview you, because I don't want to lose this wisdom that you have and that you so eloquently speak of. And I want to thank you because I was apprenticed to you. I did my very, very first birth with Penny. And if Amanda Bates out there, we both say hello, because it was your amazing birth that really stepped me into the birthing arena, and the wonderful midwives, independent midwives like Penny here. And I wanted to ask you, Penny, being a midwife for 40 years and being an independent home birth midwife, and having been a midwife all over the world, you've been to many, many countries, you've had so many incredible adventures and stories to share. What do you notice that's changed so much now from, when did you start? What year would have you started?
I probably started my midwifery, well, I trained as a midwife at Royal North Shore Hospital in 1968.
I was 6.
1968, and had my daughter, whose birthday was yesterday, and I remember, this is being a bit reminiscent, but I remember being in labour and thinking nothing about it and going around and looking after women at the maternity unit until someone said to me, don't you think you're about, I was like, oh yes, I think, yes. So my empathy has always been with women. And what do I think is happening now? The thing that I find wonderful is that midwives, women are becoming far more vocal. Women are starting to realise that they need to pull the foot off the accelerator by patriarchy, and that they need to stand up and speak their truth, Maha. This is why they respond with you, my darling, because truth is something that is felt. It's a felt. You don't need a lie detector. Women feel the truth. We feel truth.
That's right.
So we feel it through our wombs. We feel it through our every sensory organ that we have. And so, what do I... yes, our hearts. So what do I think? The sad thing is, I think that midwives are being de-skilled. Midwives are being de-skilled. I've worked with some amazing traditional midwives, and I sort of decided that I would call myself a traditional midwife.
Yeah.
Because it's those traditions of midwifery that remain buried under so much bullshit and are so powerful that they're shocking in their truth, really. So I have worked with some amazing traditional midwives who have never had access to, you know, ultrasounds, for God's sake. For all they've used were their ears and their hands.
Yeah.
And I've watched these women's hands, and they play the geography of a woman's body like you wouldn't believe. You know, the landscape of a woman's body. And yeah, these women have been, you know, touted as being, you know, unhelpful, dirty, whatever. But I became a midwife when I went independent, and then when I went overseas. Basically, I love women, you know.
And you do, and you have amazing stories. I think the ones that touched me so deeply was you working in Africa, in Darfur, sorry,
Yeah.
with the bombs dropping and delivering babies and
Yeah.
the women coming through. Just tell us a little bit about that. Amazing.
I think the strength of women is quite extraordinary, and Darfur still remains makes my heart bleed actually for the women, because the women in Darfur, like a lot of women in Africa, have they are female genital mutilation, and it's mutilation. So I had never seen it. You know, I'd never been with a woman who'd been desecrated so severely, you know. But the thing that amazed me the most was that the traditional midwives who looked after these women were also the perpetrators of the mutilation. So complicated stories, really. The thing that blew me away was learning how to deal with really dire circumstances without any technology. So my instinct, and this is what comes home to me so strongly, is instinct, women's instinct. You know, when you feel that something is happening that doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right, you have to really tune into that instinct. And I think what you teach women about their body and learning to get in touch with their body, because the body houses all those tiny filaments of DNA that are tucked inside our minds, our hearts, our wombs, inside our blood. This is the preservation of the race. This is our God. And you know, we were talking about we were talking about biological determinism, and you know, I'm a feminist, and I have been so deeply affected by feminism, in as much that, you know, I railed against the whole concept and construct of biological determinism. But mate, you know, all the women I've worked with around the world, it's instinct. It's instinct. It's instinct. And when I listen to, or I go on Facebook and I see some midwives' comments about, oh, we should do this and do that, and it's like, hey, you are so sucked into the medical model, do this at your own demise, because you're doing a disservice to the women that you are working with women. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. So the good thing is that women are starting to wake up and be really strong, and they're being nurtured by women such as yourself, mate. and you know, and midwives, you have to pull yourself away. You have to start really looking at serious research that's done into the industry of birthing, really.
Yes.
Don't let yourselves be de-skilled. You know, do yourself a favour, go and work with traditional midwives around the world and learn from them.
Yes.
You know, they are just extraordinary. Yes, you know, people say, oh, there's some terrible things that happen with traditional midwives. Mate, there's more terrible things that happen in the medical profession, in obstetrics. You know, America has the highest incidence of maternal mortality in the world, in the industrialized world. Now, if all that technology was leading us to safer birthing, well, you know,
why is that not happening?
Hello, question.
That's right. And I think that the core root of it is what you've spoken about, is that severing mothers from their instinct, which is what I talk about all the time, because once you separate and detach and disembody a woman that way, and then she's starting to second guess herself, she's not tuned in, she's externalizing the experience, then that's where the power and the control can come in. And I think if we lose midwives to that, then we're going down a very dark path.
Well,
so,
the midwives are just relying
yes.
on this, you know, they forget about the mechanism of birth, and they're interested in, well, not all, of course, there are some wonderful midwives, and I'm not denying that, and there are a lot of women midwives who work inside the system against it to protect women from the system. But, you know, I just find that we need to start investigating why
right.
why women are being separated from the sense of woman.
That's right. And what you were speaking about before when we were talking, when you were talking about the action of birthing and that raw, can you share that? That was beautiful.
Well, I was in Cairo for a while, and
In where?
Cairo.
Oh, Cairo, in the Middle
I
East.
was in Cairo for a while, and I remember going to the pyramids, and I remember seeing these lions, and I thought there was a song. It's like, I wonder where the lions are, and I used to sing this to some of the women when they were just past transition, you know, and it's like, and it's like, here come the lions. I wonder where the lions are, and it's. For me, the lions at the entrance to that path where, you know, the cervix sort of dilates and the woman just like, you know what it's like.
The natural
feeling,
woman,
I
yes.
am going to die here. It's like,
Can I do this?
I'm going to die. And then they roar like these warriors. They roar like lions. I go, way to go, sweetheart, way to go. This is it, bravo.
Yes.
So the lions at the gate, and they are, for me, in midwife terms, the ischial spines. You know, it's like when this baby comes down passes through the ischial spines, and you think you're going to die, and the lions roar.
And that's the roar that opens us into that wildness as women, total surrender into who I am as a woman. Here I am, this is who I am in the world. And what upsets me so deeply is women who are getting numbed, who are getting severed, who are getting cut. That raw is cut, the tongue is cut, the body is cut, and they're not feeling that strength of birth, that lion's roar, that raw as I call it. And it's a shame. It's a terrible shame.
It's a crime.
It's a crime
and
against humanity.
It is. And
to take that away.
You know, it's like I see birthing women as warriors. They're absolute warriors. And this is why, you know, I think it's really interesting with cultures though. You know, a lot of women culturally yell and do their thing because they want to scare away the spirits, you know, evil spirits, yada yada yada. The women in Darfur made not a sound. Not a sound. And
the bombs were making.
And they were going through, you know, to birth through circumcision, even after it's been released, is just the most horrifying thing, because a grade 4 circumcision is, I don't want to talk about that really, it's just, it's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But these women, they were so grounded, they were so... and someone said to me, you know, were they given anything? And I no, nothing. There is no pain relief in these places. I mean...
Why do you think that was? Because the war's going on, not wanting to attract attention to what's happening? What's the reason? I think it's a cultural thing. My daughter, her first birth, second birth, not a sound. She was so focused that she just went somewhere. And this is what I say to women: you find yourself a space that's yours in your mind. You know, find yourself a space. Go there in that space, and the I hate to call it pain because it's too big to call it pain, isn't it? I mean, it's a huge feeling. I say it's the rhythms. It's the rhythms of life, the sensations of life.
And so find yourself a space that you can trampoline into through that feeling. You can isolate yourself from that feeling of where you think you're going to die. You isolate yourself into a space. So there is some sort of isolation and there is some sort of separation, but it's not really it's a strategy.
It's almost got a psychic element too,
Oh,
isn't it? It's like
totally,
you're grounded in a
totally.
psychic, you
Yeah.
know, that altered state of
Yes.
consciousness as
Yep.
well,
Yep.
with the endorphins
Yep.
and all of those things. So the body knows
Yes.
that.
Oh, yes.
And every woman has a way of moving through that, but it's about being supported to be able to move through that.
To know
cavity.
you're safe.
Yes.
To know you're
yes.
safe.
And to be reassured.
And that's what a midwife's job is.
Yes.
I mean, you know, a successful birth comes from a good foundation, and that's our job as midwives and birth supporters and
doulas,
all of that, is to give the woman a sense that, you know, there are millions of women who've walked this path, and we're all with you.
Yes.
And your ancestors,
Yes.
the spirit guides. It's all. It's a sacred realm, and it is a sacred path. And physically, you're fine. Psychologically, we have to get you into the space where you know you can do it, and you can do it beautifully, because this is a sacred ceremony. Prepare for the ceremony. You know, it's all about ceremony. It's a sacred ceremony.
And you were saying before that you do a lot of this in the antenatal time
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
Which is where the work is done.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, the woman's work is done. The womb work
this
is done.
Women's work, and it's about getting deep, as you know you do in your classes. You know, it's about getting deep inside that space that defines woman.
Yes.
So that then leads us to a space of what is woman, and you know, there's this biological sort of determinism. But honest to God, Maha, we talked about this, and
We did.
my bottom
woman
line
bleeds.
is.
Yes,
It's an old song, Women Bleed.
Women
And
bleed.
I won't go any further than that. I just say it's complicated times, and as a great-grandmother, I say women bleed.
Yes.
And that leads us to discussions around contraception and all that sort of stuff too. So
Yes,
you've
another
got to
whole
let
area.
your body bleed. This is
Yes.
really important. And I know a lot of women go, oh, look, I hate it. But, you know, I loved bleeding. My grandmother, she said to me, you know, every time you bleed, the first blood you gift to Mother Earth. Because the more blood that is gifted, the less is spilt on the battlefield. And you know, that's a really interesting thing. I mean, I have thought about that a lot in terms of sacred. And I've taught my daughters, my granddaughter, and hopefully my great-granddaughter if I'm around by that time.
And my daughter, who's here.
Yes, it's really an imperative. It's
That's beautiful.
sacred. Blood is sacred, and yes, I've thought a lot about that.
So why do we not, as a society, as a culture, really respect and revere that blood is part of the earth, to take it back to the earth? That ceremony, that reverence for the bleed. What is it that we keep trying to diminish?
Because it's another era, and all this sort of stuff. You know, I've had people say you're hippie trippy, and I said, I can be as academic as you want, you know, but basically I like the conversation and the language of the spiritual, and for me it has more feeling. I mean, I think we are moving towards the recognition that the spiritual has been exorcised from our society.
Yes.
And women hold this gift on life. You know, it brings into the abortion thing. You know, it brings into a conversation about this is my body. This body is, you know, I am the container in which birth and life, birth and death is translated, and so this is my responsibility, my obligation, and I take this really very seriously. And for those women in their, especially in Indigenous communities all around the world, you know, the grandmother law is sacred law, and it's only sort of really discussed in women's groups, you know.
And
so
the circle of the women. That's why it's so important that we can have
absolutely.
that. It must keep going.
You know, the cervix is a circle for a reason.
That's right. But I mean, the thing is that we have been doing this sacred circle work for a long time, and that's where we should be able to say whatever needs to be spoken without fear of being judged or being put down or diminished. And what I see in the modern day is that there's a great sensitivity around being able to speak one's truth, and there's a lot of judgment on that, on women. So women are fearful of being who they deeply are for fear of being judged, because everyone has a voice now, and that's wonderful. And I would hope that we can keep our voices freely flowing like this river that sits before us without feeling judged, criticised, diminished,
I understand
made
exactly
less
what
than.
you're saying, but you know what, sometimes we are, and I hate to say it, but sometimes the sisterhood can be
Cruel.
not as, you know, the sisterhood can be really cruel.
Yes.
And I think the sense of competition
Yes.
in our society
Yes.
is insidious.
It's becoming worse.
Yeah,
Yes.
but yin and yang, and I believe there is a balance. I believe that, or I feel, because I feel it, I believe it. You know, I look at these kids now, the millennials. You know, like I look at many and all these young girls, and they're not afraid of saying their piece.
Yes.
You know, because they feel it's their right, and so I'm really optimistic. You know, I'm really optimistic. I think there's weird shit. Excuse me. There is weird shit going down, mate.
Yes.
And however,
It's not losing the heart. We mustn't lose that heart.
we can't.
We can't.
We can't.
Which is that female.
And so that's why the sacred, that's the yin and the yang, the sacred and the profane, and it will always be that way. We just have to be conscious.
Yes.
And I so love being a woman. You know?
I know.
Being a
And
woman.
look, Penny's nearly 72.
I
Amazing. She gives
love.
us all that beauty and dignity of woman.
It's
I love you.
fantastic to be a woman.
It
and
is.
you know, I know this whole thing about, you know, midwives and witches and whatever, but I do have a memory of that space, and that was really shocking to me. I have a memory. I came out of one of the women's circles, and I just had this flash that took me to my knees, actually. So I do remember that, and that history. So it's a parallel universe sort of thing, really. It's I do have memory of that. So I think women are very powerful, and I think we have to recognise male and female. We have to recognise
the
our
unity
strengths.
that you were talking
it's
about.
unity. I'm not into separatism. I don't. I
To
believe
that division and that
I believe
throwing
we are
rocks at
male,
each other.
female. I just think there needs to be space where men and respect women and
Women respect men.
Yes, I think we have to respect one another and listen to one another's experiences.
Yes.
And I reckon we'll be okay. You know, I think it's fantastic what is happening with the younger generation, and you know, as
We're raising them that way. We're
that's
trying our
right.
best to raise them with that awareness, that consciousness. Our sons, our daughters, it's really important. I think we're starting to see that. I think we are seeing that.
And Gil Scott Heron, you know, Gil Scott Heron, he said, the revolution will not be televised, it'll be live. It'll
And
be
here
live.
we are, live, the revolution. And on that note,
Yes.
I want to say thank you so much,
See you,
Penny.
everybody.
Yeah, that was
No
lovely.
worries.
We just had a bit of a rave after how long? Haven't seen Penny
20
for nearly
years.
22
Wow,
years. I haven't seen you for 10 years.
Yes.
So lots of love
Okay.
to everyone. Ciao,
Yes.
bye.